on, everyone? Welcome to episode 34 of Diego Colley Football Show. And what a weekend we have coming up in the next few days. Tonight, as this episode's coming out, we have Miami Ole Miss, the first of the two college football semifinals. Tomorrow, we have Indiana Oregon, which should be a great battle there. And then we have a great next 3 days of Super Wildcard weekend with 2 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday, 1 game Monday night. So we're going to talk about it all, get some predictions, get a preview of all those games, and let's get right into it. So let's get into tonight's game. We have Miami Hurricanes versus the Ole Miss Rebels in the Cotton Bowl taking place in Scottsdale, Arizona. And these are two teams that have not been here some would say ever. Miami's last was the only team on this of these 4 teams that has won a national championship in 2001. Their most recent one, they won the BCS. That was during the Miami. They were the superpower of college football. A much different landscape than it is now. There's no Alabama in this year's playoff. There's in this year's semifinals. There's no Ohio State. There's no Georgia, who's just bounced by Ole Miss. Ole Miss has never won a national championship. Oregon's never won a national championship. Indiana's never won a national championship. This is unprecedented territory for all these teams with the point that they're at right now. And that's, I think, what makes this playoff so special. It's these guys are fighting for something that's going to change the history of the program, something that's going to change the history of the school. This isn't just a normal year for an SEC school. This is a culture-changing college football semifinals for every team in it. So let's talk about this first game. Miami Hurricanes versus the Ole Miss Rebels. The way that this game is kind of set up, I love the construction of this game. This is two teams who are built very, very differently. Miami is the best trench play in the entire playoff, in the entire country, I would say. The way that if you watch that last game of Ohio State, who was the best team in the country, they overpowered Ohio State. They were the best team in that game. They had the best line play in that game. They were the more physical team. And this was an Ohio State team that is coming off previously winning the national championship. And people were saying this team this year could have potentially been better than the team last year. And they proved them wrong. Bain, the defensive end, was an absolute force. He was the best player in that game. He's going to be the best player on the field in this one. And they won that game with their defense. The defense from Miami to shut down the Ohio State offense with the best offensive player in college football in Jeremiah Smith, and shut down Julian Sand, shut down Carnell Tate, who's going to be a top 10 maybe pick in this upcoming draft. With what they did in that game was very, very impressive. And this is an Ole Miss team that just came out and shocked Georgia. Georgia beat them during the regular season with Lane Kiffin. And I don't know if Lane was thinking like this, but a lot of people were like, they lost to Georgia with Lane, their head coach, and now they're going into the playoff. It's their interim head coach's second game. They're going to lose. Like they were a substantial underdog. There were 7-point underdogs at a neutral field, and Ole Miss went in there and they shocked everyone, I'd say. I don't know how many people that were expecting them to come out and play like that. And it feels like they've garnered some momentum a little bit with Trinidad Shamlis saying he's going to come back to school. Kawan Lacey saying he's going to come back to school for Ole Miss. They're not transferring to be with Lane. They're staying with their team. They believe in what they're building there at Ole Miss. And I think that sets up for an interesting matchup because that game against Georgia's kind of the typical SEC. They're going to give you the hard-nosed defense. You're not going to be able to move the ball against it. Kirby Smart is one of the smartest defensive minds in college football. And Ole Miss went out there and they put up points on them. Trinidad Shamlis was running around like he was Johnny Manziel in that game. They put up 39 points. They overcame a 9-point halftime deficit to beat these guys. And that shocked a lot of people. And it sets up a game where either Miami is going to have to overcome kind of the sluggishness on offense that they've been in. And that's non-debatable. If we're looking at Miami's last few games, they've won both games. And yes, they faced two solid defenses, I'd say. Obviously, in the A&M defense that was stout all year long in SEC play, and the Ohio State defense with Caleb Downs, like he's going to be a top 5-10 pick, arguably. And the rest of the guys on that side of the ball, one of the best scoring defenses in college football, and Matt Patricia, the great NFL mind behind it. But they haven't put up enough points that they're going to need to put up in this game. They put up 24 last week against Ohio State, and the week before it was 10 against A&M. Ole Miss is going to make you score. I don't know if I'd say that Ole Miss is a better offense than Ohio State, but the quarterback play is better, and that's the most important position on the entire field. Trinidad Chambliss is playing at a much higher level than Julian Sam. Trinidad Chambliss can do things that Julian Sam could not do, and I would say that Trinidad is better than Marcel Reed right now. He's a scarier player opposite of the ball to me than Marcel Reed. The plays that he made with his arm and his legs. He's not one of those guys like Reed is a dual threat guy that Reed of Texas A&M. He's a dual threat guy that he's scrambling around, but he's more looking to run. In the threat of the pass, he was inaccurate at times, and it kind of led to missed guys open, missed turnovers at the end of the game that end A&M season. That's not what Trinidad Chambliss is going to do. He will run around for 50 yards in the backfield and throw the ball 40 yards down the field to a guy on an absolute rope. He was perfect in that last game. I mean, I'm going to check out his PFF grade. I'm going to be surprised if it was anything lower than an 85. He grades it at a 91. That's elite. That is elite level stuff from Trinidad Chambliss. And he played arguably his best game of the year on the biggest stage of the entire season. But this is a different monster in this Miami defense that he's coming up against. We're looking at one of the best players in all of college football, in Ruben Bain Jr. He has a 92 defensive grade the entire season. People say that the kind of knock on him is he has T-Rex arm, his arm length is short. That's the NFL mindset of that's what's going to drop him down. That's why he's not going to be as good of a pro. I don't care about that stuff. That stuff does not matter. If you watch that game against Ohio State, he was the best player on the field every single play. And even if he wasn't making the sack, the amount of attention that you have to allocate to a guy like that is going through your head every single play. Trinidad, when he walks up to the line on every single play, is going to say, where is 4? Where is number 4? And you have to worry about so much more because opposite of Ruben Bain Jr., you have Akeem Mesidor, who, again, is graded out as a 92.7 on PFF, a 90 in the run defense, 91 in the pass rush. On the opposite edge, he's a fifth-year redshirt senior, and that is another guy that you have to worry about here. So what can Ole Miss do in this game to not get into that grog offensively that A&M did and Ohio State did? Well, I think it starts with Trinidad. Obviously, it starts with him as their centerpiece. He's the quarterback, but he has to be great in this game. I'm thinking of an example from recent memory, kind of a tough example to think about, but when the Washington Huskies were in the college football playoff, it was Michael Penix versus Texas in that first semifinal game, and he had the game of his life in that game. He literally, I don't even remember him missing a throw. He was in flow state. He was stepping up. He was making throws on the run. He was using his legs, and they needed him to do that to beat Texas. Texas had Byron Murphy on the inside, T'Vondre Sweat on the inside. They had the athletes defensively, and Michael Penix Jr.'s elite play helped overcome that. Well, the next week against Michigan, he was a little banged up. Whatever happens, but he didn't have his best game at all. He was missing throws, and that was one of the factors of the reason that they didn't win the national championship. It's a horrible thing to think about. They had it in their hands. It was one game, but Trinidad needs to be arguably perfect like he was in that last game. He can't be missing guys. He can't be turning the ball over. On key third and fourth downs, he has to make the right decision. He has to use his legs. He has to know when to tuck it and run. He has to know when to dump the ball off. And quite frankly, he has to know when to throw it away at times. Because last week, I'll check it on the sack numbers, but Georgia struggled to get into the ground. And this Miami defensive line, they're going to get you on the ground. They're not going to miss sack opportunities. When you double team Bain and you have Mesidor coming off the other side, you're like there's going to be pressure on your face, and there's not always going to be a chance to scramble and run and get rid of the ball like Georgia was letting you do. This is a completely different monster on the defensive side of the ball. And in the run game, Kawan Lacey had a fumble last week. That was arguably they almost lost that game. And if they lost that game, that fumble that turned into the points for Georgia was going to be a reason why. So them not turning the ball over, Trinidad playing a safe game, and he has to kind of find a middle ground between being Trinidad and running around in circles and making those hero plays and knowing that this is an elite defense, probably the best defense you're going to face all year in this game, that sometimes you're going to have to take a negative play or take a throwaway and live to see another down or check the ball down and get a few yards and set yourself up for a third and manageable. On the Miami side of the ball, the Miami offense, Carson Beck, I talked about it on Tuesday. The reason Carson Beck won that game was because he did exactly what he needed to do. He took care of the football, and he made the plays that he had to make in a game that he knew was going to be low scoring. I don't necessarily think that's how this game's going to go. But they are facing an inferior defense in the Ole Miss Rebels. This is not the Ohio State defense. The Ohio State defense had absolute killers. There was so much you had to think about. And with the way they got started in that game last week, going up that 14-0, getting the pick six by Keontae Scott, who I didn't even mention on the Miami side of the ball, one of the best DBs in all of football. The way that game script played out, Beck knew what he had to do. And I think he realized that. This wasn't him. The way he played that game was not just because that's how they win in the game, wanting to know how to play. They probably figured they're going to have to score more than 2 touchdowns offensively to win that game. But the way that their defense set them up so early and going up that early 7-0 and the defense getting the pick six, that's all he did what he was asked to do. But in this game, I think it's going to be a little different, but I think he's going to have windows to do more, because this is a Georgia offense that I wasn't the highest on this year. Gunnar Stockton's the guy that I wasn't the highest on this year, but they were able to run the football, and I think that's a good starting point for the Miami offense. Mark Fletcher Jr. is one of my favorite players to watch. This is 2 weeks in a row that he has willed them to victory. They put up 10 points against A&M, but that whole game, I mean, they missed 3 field goals. That's multiple drives getting down in there in opposing territory. They ride Fletcher. Fletcher is a guy that they'll give the ball to every play. He should carry the ball 25 plus times. Let me look at his carry count, but he had 90 rushing yards in this Ohio State game, 19 carries. So he got almost up to that 20 carry mark. They gave Pringle 3 carries. They gave Tony a carry, Shamar Brown 5 carries. They're handing the ball off almost 30 times, which I think is the key for the Miami Hurricanes. In the A&M game, Fletcher has 172 yards rushing, 17 carries. Tony gets 3 carries. Pringle gets 1. They're around 25 there, with Beck getting 4 himself. They need to be in that 25 to 30 range, and Fletcher can get these big gains. It feels like every time I see him run the ball, with how good that Miami offensive line is, he's getting 3 to 4 yards a carry, and it's almost setting up each time like, when is he going to break one? He's so due to break one. He's so due to break one. And that's going to be a massive part of this game. I think if they can get Fletcher going, that sets up the options for a play action deep shot to hit Daniels down the field or to hit Tony down the field, who the defense has to allocate so much attention to. Malachi Tony, one of the most athletic kind of gadget. It's not to call him a gadget guy, but you have to know where Malachi Tony is on every play, and getting him in motion and making them commit to Fletcher and be able to flip it outside to Tony is going to be a very, very important factor for the Miami offense. They're going to have to capitalize on in the red zone. This Ole Miss team is not going to be a team that's going to settle for the field goals every time, and when they do, they have a great kicker. That is one thing, a comparison here that might be overlooked. Special teams have played such a big part in so many games across the NFL, across college football, this entire season. And Ole Miss has a great kicker. He made 2 kicks of over 50 yards. He made the game-winning kick with pressure on the line last week. That's huge. And the Miami kicker missed 3 kicks in the A&M game and bounced back last week against Ohio State. I believe he drilled a 45 to 50 yarder. It was in that range. It was a deep one that made it a 2-score game late in the game. That was massive for Miami holding on to win that game. I think that Carson Beck has I'm expecting a good game from Carson Beck here and a good game from the Miami offense. This is definitely a step down. And no offense to Ole Miss, no offense to Pete Golden, who's coaching this defense and is the head coach right now. This is a inferior defense to what they've seen in the last 2 weeks. And I think playing these elite defenses in A&M and Ohio State these last few weeks, it was a great, it's hard to say test, because obviously not like that's not how they were looking at it, but it was great to prepare them for what they're going to see in this game. They're going to have more options. Beck's going to have a little more time back in the pocket. He's going to be able to take these shots on the field. And it's just a matter of time of if he's going to hit them, if he can avoid these turnover plays that have kind of hindered him in big moments in the last few years. So who do I think wins this game? I think Miami wins this game. I think that they're better on both sides of the ball, on the offensive line and the defensive line. I think that the 2 edges having an ability to get to Trinidad and kind of just bang him up over the course of the game and beat him up and bang Lacey in the run game and kind of just knock these guys up throughout the entire game. And when it gets to the fourth quarter, if it's a close game, they know they have the guys on the line to will them to victory. And if Miami can go up early, I think that'd be massive. They can come out and get a stop, and they can ride Fletcher down the field, go up 7-0, get another stop, and get to a point where you're up 10-14. That's not where you want to be against this Miami team if you're Ole Miss. A hot start is a very big key for the Rebels, and I just think that the line play on both sides of the ball is a massive thing here for Miami. And I think that the Ole Miss fights. I don't think that Trinidad goes down without a fight, but I just think the physicality on both sides of the ball is going to be too much for Ole Miss. And Miami wins this game. I can see them putting up in the high 20s to the low 30s if things go their way. I can see them maybe forcing the turnover, forcing the fumble, forcing the interception, and winning this game. We'll say 27. I think 27-20. I think Ole Miss has a chance at the end, and they can't quite pull it out. 27-20 Miami. To the next game, the Indiana Hoosiers versus the Oregon Ducks. And before talking about this game, I'd just be very blunt about it. I really hope Oregon loses. The first game, I wouldn't mind either team winning. I think it'd be fun. I'm praying that Oregon loses. I really don't want to deal with Oregon even making the national championship and having to worry about them winning one. So I'm really if they get over the number one team in the country, that things are going to be looking rough. Vibes are going to be low over here. So we're big Indiana Hoosiers fans this weekend. That's the first thing I have to say. But on the note of these two teams, this is a rematch of earlier in the season when Indiana went into Eugene. This is when they put the country on notice, in my opinion. They beat the Ducks 30-20. When the Ducks were the 3 team in the country, Indiana was 7. Indiana was like 7-point underdogs in this game. It was a point when people kind of thought that they were a team the type of team that they were last year, going to beat up on all these teams that weren't quite at their level and not be able to win these high-level games. And they went into Eugene, a game that Mendoza didn't play great, threw for 215 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. But they beat up on the Ducks, forced two Dante Moore interceptions. It was a statement win for Sig in Indiana. And these two teams are coming off 2 very, very different wins in the last round. On the Indiana front, they were 7-point favorites over Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and they went in and they beat the shit out of Alabama. It was never close. I was wrong about Alabama. I thought they would keep it close. No, Signetti showed that they were by far the better team. Him and his team felt disrespected with the 7-point line because they were significantly better in every facet of the ball. They don't let you run the football, and Alabama was a horrible running football team. They didn't let them run the football, and they dominated them on offense. Mendoza only was 14-16 for 3 touchdowns, 192 yards. They did nothing to stop him. They had 2 backs go for over 90 yards. It was an absolutely dominant performance. Oregon, on the other hand, the defense dominated. Yes, I will say that. The offense played horrible. They limped over the finish line. They put up 23 points, had multiple turnover on downs. I believe it was 4 or 5. Yeah, they had 4. They were 4 of 8 on 4th down. That's atrocious. To go along with Dante Moore throwing 1 interception, it was bad. And the only reason they won the game was because their defense played well against an inferior quarterback, a team that offensively just wasn't up to standard for this college football playoff run. And they forced 4 turnovers, 2 fumbles, 2 interceptions, and that's what got them the victory. So going in, this is 2 teams in very different vibes. But if you look at the line of this game, I believe it's 3.5 maybe. The bookmakers, odd makers are liking Oregon here just based on that. They think that this game's going to be closer than maybe people think. I mean, I don't think that it's a 7-point difference, but open that 4 down to 3.5. That's saying it's going to be a pretty close game, which I mean, it's the 4 best teams in the country. Yes, it is going to be a close game, but I think the Indiana Hoosiers are the better team here, and they show nothing to tell me that they're not. They have one of the best run defenses in the entire league, in the entire nation. I keep saying league when I'm talking about college athletics. One of the best run defenses in the entire nation. You do not run the football on the Indiana Hoosiers. That is just kind of something that's known. Let me check their statistics here on the team side. but they're elite. They are elite on the defensive side of the ball. And last game they played without one of their best defensive linemen who's out for the entire playoff run. And that's just the kind of team that they are. And Cignetti is one of the best coaches in all of college football, arguably top 5, top 3, however high you want to put him. The way that he has his team playing, his team motivated, he finds any way to motivate his team. That's something I've noticed. They never go in with, oh, we're going to go in and we're going to win this game. They are going in to beat the shit out of every single team that they face. And I'm sure that he has some sort of thing pulled up to show his team, oh, they're doubting us this week. So finding someone to pick against his guys. I would bet a lot of money that he's going to have his guys motivated and ready to go. In this last, and let's talk about Oregon. When I'm talking about the Indiana run defense, Oregon is down to 2 running backs. They're down to 2 healthy running backs in this game. They had 2 enter the portal, Jaden Lamar and another guy, and then their kind of workhorse back who has been their guy the entire season in Jordan Davison got hurt at the end of the Texas Tech game. And the 2 guys under the portal, they're not going to play in this game. So looking at the availability report that was released tonight for the Oregon Ducks, they have running back Jordan Davison out, running back Mekhi Hughes out, running back Juwan Riggs out, running back Jaden Lamar out. They have another guy that entered the portal, running back Jay Harris, who was listed as entered in the portal. He entered this morning, but wasn't on the availability report, so he may be playing in this game. I mean, if you're entering the portal and you want to get some reps in, you're gonna get some action because they have no other running backs that can play in the game. They don't. They're literally hanging on by a thread on guys that can handle the ball in this game. Also, looks like wide receiver Evan Stewart's still going to be out in this game. Wide receiver Kyler Casper, wide receiver Justice Lowe, defensive back Dalen Austin, defensive back Kingston Lopa, defensive back Sione Lolea, and defensive back Solomon Davis. The running back room and their defensive back room is banged up for this game. That's not a good sign because not only is this not like they're losing their quality backs, these aren't just they're depth guys. Jaden Lamar was not their starting best running back all year, but he was a solid guy they relied on special teams and to carry the ball when guys get banged up. And he's not going to be there. So that's very, very important for Oregon. On the Indiana side, obviously, Stephen Daly, the defensive lineman, out. Defensive lineman Kellen Wyatt out. 2 defensive backs out and 1 running back. They're much healthier there, which is a big factor for Indiana and Oregon, and just looking at the comparison of that game. So how do I think this game plays out? I think that the way Indiana's been playing, the way that they have been able to, they suffocate teams. Penn State was the only game kind of on this entire schedule, Penn State and Iowa, where it's an inferior team and they kind of let them hang around. That was a game that Penn State played really hard, and Indiana had the grit to come back. I believe they were down 7 to 14 points. I don't remember exactly what it was. And they came back in that game and were able to come back and win. That was a very, very impressive victory. Oregon, on the other hand, since the Indiana loss, they have an ugly little game to Wisconsin, win by 14, beat Iowa by 2 and another ugly one. Minnesota, they win by 30. USC, 15-point win. Washington, 12-point win in the game. It was kind of close. They won the game somewhat convincingly, though, in my opinion. Now, what do I think is a big key here? It's Dante Moore. Dante Moore only has 9 interceptions the entire year. It's not like I'm saying he's a turnover like he turns the ball over a lot, way too much. No. But when he does turn the ball over, those are games where Oregon gets into trouble. In the Indiana game, throws 2. In the Iowa game, he throws 1. In the USC game, he throws 1. In the JMU game, which they win 51-34, he throws 2. In the Texas Tech game, he throws 1. JMU, Texas Tech, that's 2 playoff games. He has 3 interceptions. USC, Iowa, that's 2 ranked games. He has 2 interceptions there. The Indiana game, he has 2. Like I'm looking at these ranked games that he's played. Now I'll toss in the Penn State game because they were the number 3 team in the country and they played him. That's 3, 4, 5, 6 ranked games, and he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 interceptions in 6 games against ranked opponents. And that gets him into trouble. These are their closer games, and he his turnover issues are something that he has a tendency to have these turnover-worthy plays, and if the Indiana defense can capitalize on it, which I expect them to be able to, Oregon's gonna be in trouble, and with the fact of how good Indiana's run defense is against a depleted Oregon run game, just based on the running back standpoint, I think this is a bad recipe for Oregon, which means they're gonna have to rely on Dante Moore to drop back and throw the ball to DeCorian Moore, who has the ability to contribute there, but this is an Indiana secondary that last week against Alabama, obviously Alabama was inferior and not up to the task. They were nowhere near ready to compete in that game. But they were not able to run the football, and Ty Simpson was dropping back in that game. They dropped back, their two quarterbacks dropped back 32 times. And they held them to no really explosive plays. I mean, Jeremy Bernard had a 34-yarder. Ryan Williams had a 26-yarder, but they held them to 170 passing yards on 32 dropbacks. They didn't allow for big plays at all. And on the Indiana offense side of the ball, they ran the ball like no other. If they can run the ball in this Oregon defense, which is something that Texas Tech kind of was able to do, to be honest, those numbers were aided by some kind of explosive plays that upped the numbers of the rushing by a lot. But Jacoby Williams, 13 carries, 81 yards, hit a long of 50, so that takes off 30 off of that. You got 12 for 30. But Cameron Dickey, 11 for 30. Again, not the greatest, but if Indiana is able to run the football, that opens up so much more for Mendoza. Because if Mendoza can play the game like he did in this Alabama game, 14 to 60, he doesn't have to drop back every play and take these shots and just be efficient and take what the defense is giving him. This is dangerous for Oregon. Kind of like I said in that last game. If Oregon falls behind early, I don't like the script there. Because if Indiana is able to fall back and make Dante Moore drop back and fit throws in the tight windows when they're expecting the pass, that's not what Dante Moore's great at. He's great at relying off the run game, making these big plays happen. But if you make him drop back to every play and make him come from behind, that's not a script I like for Oregon. Maybe this is coming from a biased standpoint. I really want Oregon to lose. I think they're going to lose. I think they can keep it close for a little bit, but I trust Mendoza over Moore. I trust Mendoza not to turn the ball over. And quite frankly, I just think that Indiana is the best team in the country. I think they're the number one team in the country for a reason. They beat Ohio State for a reason. They beat the shit out of Alabama for a reason. I think Indiana is going to win this game by 10 to 14 points. I think it's going to be 30. Give me Indiana 34 to 24. I think they win by 10. Moore turns the ball over a few times. The inexperienced running backs that are playing in this game, maybe a fumble or two. And I think Indiana wins this game and sets up a Miami-Indiana college football championship game. To the NFL, and we start on Saturday in Carolina in what should be, however the game plays out. We got the Rams as 10-point favorites. This should be a fun atmosphere. I want it to be fun at the beginning. I want to see the loud, hyped up Bank of America crowd. That's what I want to see here, because obviously this is like the largest spread, what people are expecting to be like the least close game. But this could be really, really fun. And I think this has to be said too. It's in a weekend where all these games are close. I had a lot of trouble picking a lot of these games because each one is like around a 1 to 3 point spread, and there's factors on each team that make each team interesting. Each team have a chance to win. But this game, you got a 10-point spread. Rams are 10-point favorites on the road, 10-point road favorites going to Carolina. They get Devontae Adams back. It came out that he was dealing with a knee injury along with a hamstring. And the Panthers get guard Robert Hunt back, who hasn't played all year. He's one of their best offensive linemen last year, got hurt before the season, and he will be back. So that can be a factor in the run game. Just thinking back to the last time these two teams played, it feels like a fluke, doesn't it? This was a game that kind of came out of nowhere. The Rams were in a spot where they controlled their own destiny for the NFC West, and they went to Carolina. I believe it might have been the week after playing the Seahawks, and they go in there and they lose 2 weeks after. 2 weeks after beating the Seahawks, they control their own destiny. And they go to Carolina and they lose. Matthew Stafford turns the ball over a few times. And all of a sudden, the Rams are in a little bit of a rut. They're cold. And that's not even a crazy thing to say. They lost to the to the Panthers. Obviously, they lose to the Seahawks. That bumps them out of 1 seed consideration. And then now they lose to the Falcons next week, which makes them in a spot where they might not even be the 5 seed, and then the Niners lose, which gives them the 5 seed. But they're not playing their best football. But this is Sean McVay. This is Matthew Stafford. I do not expect that to let that continue into the playoffs. I think that this is a team that can just flip the switch at any time and play well on the offense side of the ball, not turn the ball over, not have these sloppy mistakes. I just think the way that McVay is going to game plan going into it, he's going to have his guys ready. But there's some things you can't overlook, and that's something on the defensive side of the ball, which is their run defense. Ever since that Week 11 game versus the Seahawks, the Rams' run defense has not been the greatest, to be honest. It has been one of the I don't know about one of the worst in the league, but they have given up significant run numbers to teams. I mean, he's looking at that Falcons game. Bijan Robinson ran all over these guys. In the Cardinals game, that this is a game that can't be looked at. But the Seahawks game, this is when Kenneth Walker went for 100 yards rushing, had a few big gains in the screen game. In the Lions game, the rushing wasn't great. But back in that first Panthers game, Chuba Hubbard ran for 83 yards. If I was a Panthers fan, I'm signing up for Chuba Hubbard 83 yards, Rico Dowdle 58 yards, over 130 on the ground. I'm signing up for that in an instant. And I think having Devontae Adams back for the Rams is obviously it's a massive deal, because if you're looking at some of the guys that Stafford's been throwing to in the last few weeks, it's like, what are we doing right now? This is one of the Super Bowl favorites. Thinking about that Falcons game, the primetime game. If it wasn't going to Puka, who was their fourth leading receiver in that game, you're going to Xavier Smith, Terrence Ferguson, who's been a factor all year for them. Kanata Mumfield, he's throwing to Tutu Atwell in the second to last play of the game, trying to get into Falcons territory, a bomb to Tutu Atwell. Having Devontae Adams back to have that steady guy on the opposite side of the ball, you can play the tight ends, and then you can play Puka and Devontae. It's massive. It's going to be a difference maker. And I don't expect Stafford. If Matthew Stafford gets tricked by the Carolina Panthers and turns the ball over multiple times against the Panthers 2 times in 1 year, I mean, I would love that. There would be nothing I wouldn't love more than for the Panthers to win this football game. I just quite frankly don't think it's going to happen. I think that they're too experienced. They're playing a team that has zero playoff experience. Their head coach has never coached a playoff game. He's talking about wanting to channel the Beastquake energy. He was an assistant coach during the Beastquake when it happened in Seattle in 2010. I like the vibes from Carolina. I think for them to win this game, they got to get Dowdle going. They got to get Hubbard going. If they can have Robert Hunt back, and that can boost the run game a little bit, that would be big, because putting all of the weight of this game on Bryce Young, relying him to make every throw against a Rams defense that can force turnovers, and a monster defensive line in Jared Verse, Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, that's a recipe for disaster for Carolina. So I think that they can keep it close for a half. I don't see Carolina winning this game. It's the Saturday 1:00 game for a reason. I don't think it's close towards the end of it, and everyone's kind of ready for the Bears and the Packers game to get on. So I think the Rams win this game. Carolina will keep it close for a little bit, but overall, I think LA puts up points in this game. I think it's 34-21 in the Rams roll. It's a Saturday night. This might just be personal bias for me as a guy that loves the Chicago Bears and loves watching the Chicago Bears. This might be my most anticipated game. We got the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. Maybe it's the factor of the division rival factor. This is the most expensive ticket for a reason. Chicago's back in the playoffs, hosting a playoff game against their biggest rival in the Green Bay Packers, a team that they split games with during the regular season. They probably deserve to lose both games. The second one, they probably deserve to win the first one more than they deserve to win the second one. They'd have a lot of things go their way. Caleb Williams showed up in the clutch in that one. And here they are now. But this Chicago team in this game is in a much better spot than they were in that last Green Bay game, and they were in the last few games of the regular season. Rome Odunze, who has been out, feels like over half the season, is going to be back in this game. The word was they were holding him out for the playoffs. He's ready to go. He's limited in practice today, but he should be ready to go. And another factor, Kyler Gordon, who was slated to come back before that first Green Bay game and play the slot corner, which is so important in playing Green Bay with these quick passes, these deep crosses they like to go. It's either going short and quick to the slot guy or the outside guy, or it's going to be a deep cross, so you're going to have to chase him. And that was exploited last week against the Lions. Kyler Gordon is questionable. I don't know what the official word is there, but he is limited in practice. He could be brought back off the IR, and that would be massive too because CJ Gardner-Johnson, who got a concussion last week, had been filling in that role, and he'd forced a few turnovers. He'd done a decent job filling in. Is also questionable. So there's a world where both those guys don't go, and the Bears are very, very limited. And again, with an already limited defense, one of the worst defenses in the entire playoffs, a defense that relies on forcing turnovers, is going to have to do that in this game. And a key to doing that is having Kyler Gordon playing in this game. Another two guys, DJ Moore's questionable. Ozzie Trapillo, a guard, is questionable. Those are two very important factors for the offense. Just having offensive weapons and not having to throw to Ja'Day Walker, who clutched up in the last game, but you don't want to have to rely on him in this one, to be honest. He's kind of been a revelation the last few weeks, but he's not the guy that you want to have to lean on and throw the ball to 7 times a game. Positive, you got Colston Loveland, who's kind of really, really emerged as touching that potential that he had preseason in these last few weeks. He's been a go-to guy for Caleb. Last week against Detroit, he was a massive factor. He was Caleb's number one target. So just imagine Caleb throwing to Rome, who's supposed to be the wide receiver one the whole first half of the season, having DJ Moore to kind of take the top off the defense, having Colston Loveland to be the reliable third down guy, which is kind of what he's come to. And then even having a guy like Cole Kmet, that's huge for the Chicago Bears offense and huge for Ben Johnson to be able to call plays with all these weapons and have so many guys that he can get the ball in their hands and they can do work with. And that's not even talking about the running backs. And I think this game relies on the Bears running backs. Ben Johnson needs to commit to running the football. He can. In that first Packers game against a full-strength Packers defense with Micah Parsons, they ran the football, and they ran the football well. They need to get back to it. I mean, just plain and simple. In this Lions game, they did not run the football enough. DeAndre Swift had 10 carries. Kyle Monangai had 6 carries. You have a two-headed monster at the running back position in Swift and Monangai. Swift is kind of the more elusive guy. He's going to make the one cut and go. Monangai is going to run through your face and fall forward for the extra yard. They need to do that. It's going to be cold, 35 degrees in Soldier Field. That's kind of classic Chicago weather this time of the year. They need to make the Packers feel them. They do. Going back to that last Packer game at home in Soldier Field, Monangai carried the ball 9 times for 50 yards. There's no reason to get away from the run there. There was no reason at all. Swift was 13 carries for 58 yards. They were running the ball for 4 to 5 yards a carry, and they only carried the ball nine times from Monangai, 13 times for Swift. They need to run the ball more, and that can set up these shots to these weapons that I was just talking about them having. If you can run the ball well, make them add an extra out in the box, you feel much more comfortable throwing a deep shot to Rome, a deep shot to DJ Moore, who called game last time against Green Bay. You can throw it over the middle of the Loveland and make Caleb comfortable. This is Caleb Williams' first career playoff game. I mean, he said he's a guy that says he doesn't have nerves. You can believe him as much as you want. He's also a guy that's been kind of at times this year inaccurate over the middle, inaccurate taking shots down the field, airmailing guys at times. Getting him comfortable in this game is Ben Johnson's first job. That's the most important thing about going into this football game is settling Caleb in. In this last game, he's 19 to 34. That's quite frankly too many incompletions. And in the first Green Bay game, I believe they had him flustered early too. In the last one, I think he was better. He had a good first drive, kind of middled out. But in the first one, I remember the early part of the game, he struggled. He only threw for 186 yards. Yeah, 19 to 35 again. So he's in that 14 to 15 range. That's not good enough. Threw an interception in that first game. Him taking care of the ball, then running the football to start the game and getting him easy completions on the rollout to Loveland, letting Loveland work after the catch on a slant to Odunze, letting Odunze run a guy over after the catch. That is massive in this game, and exploiting a guy like Keyshawn Nixon, who hasn't been the greatest in coverage this year at corner for the Packers. On the Packers side of things, Jordan Love is back. He said he has no worry about rust. I think he's going to be fine. But this is a big game for Matt LaFleur. This is a big game for Jordan Love, just based on pure narratives in Green Bay. If they lose to their rival, who they have kind of owned over the past decade and longer than that, honestly, there's going to be some questions about Matt LaFleur, and whether that's rightful or not, the questions are going to be there. Jordan Love has to show up in a big game. He's a guy that has been in big moments before, and this team hasn't necessarily pulled it out. I mean, I'm thinking back to that San Francisco game. I think that was 2 years ago, where they have a lead and turn the ball over late, and they can't put the drives together towards the end of the game to go down and win a game and win a playoff game. And this game's sitting at even odds. The bookmakers, so you can see it's -110, even going both ways. That means it's favoring Green Bay a little bit. I think Green Bay's a better team going into Chicago, going to be hostile, going to be loud. That place is going to be rocking. I'm leaning towards the Bears in this game, and call it bias. I like picking the Bears. I think I trust if they have Kyler Gordon, who I'm reading it now is they're preparing for him to go this Saturday. Having him there, full strength, with Jalen Johnson on the outside, with even C.J. Gardner-Johnson to come in at times, with Jaquan Brisker on the at safety. That's a different weapon in the secondary. And I think a big part of this is the Bears stopping the run. The Bears in the first game, I'm just thinking about against Green Bay with Josh Jacobs, they had so many times where they had him in the backfield, and he broke a few tackles, was able to get the first down, was able to score a touchdown, and that's defeating for a defense. They need to be able to stop Josh Jacobs and force Jordan Love to force some throws that maybe he's not feeling like the most he wouldn't normally do, but they're stopping the run and maybe he gets a little anxious. He forces an interception. They did that in the first game. They forced a Jordan Love interception, and it was a key to them winning that game. In the last game, Jordan Love goes out hurt. Willis comes in, and you can't really blame that loss for Green Bay on Malik Willis. Malik Willis played a great game coming in. It was 9 for 11, 121, one touchdown. He made plays with his legs that Jordan Love can't necessarily make. So having Jordan Love in eliminates kind of that playmaking factor that Malik Willis had. And dare I say, it makes it a little bit easier on the Bears defense because you have a guy that isn't quite as mobile and isn't quite as looking to run. He is looking to escape and maybe play make a little bit, but he's not making some of the plays. They're not running some of those read options that they were running with Willis, with Love. So I think that is a very important factor there, to be honest, is having Love in instead of Willis, who you're fine with playing, in my opinion. Another thing, I think this has been a trend in some of these games I'm talking about, the teams I'm picking to win, is getting out to a hot start. The Bears have been prone at times. They've been the comeback kids. Caleb Williams has been the Iceman. They've been relying on him to make the plays at the end of the game, to make the huge comeback. This isn't the spot you want to be in against Green Bay. Matt LaFleur, when he's ahead, Matt LaFleur, when he has a steady run game going with Josh Jacobs and he gets Jordan Love into a little bit of a flow state, say they get up 14-0, that can kind of take some of the juice out of the crowd, have all the momentum, and then they can control the game. They can control it with Jacobs on the ground. They can control it with Love and the RPOs. Kind of a full strength receiving core, it seems like. I think Wicks is questionable this week. He's probably going to go. You got Dobbs, Golden, who hasn't done something. I mean, the talent's there, but he's been a non-factor all year. Christian Watson taking the top off. If you let Jordan Love get into a flow and you fall behind early and force Caleb to drop back every play and kind of push the tempo and push the pace and not play at the game script that you want to play at, that's when things can get ugly for Chicago. I think having a steady opening drive, and you need to get points. You need to get points. You don't need to be the most aggressive. If you come out with 3 on the first drive, that is perfectly okay. Establish the run game early if you're Ben Johnson. Establish money on guy. Establish Swift. He knows the spots for both of them. Use the play action when needed. This is a game for a big play action shot if they can use the run game effectively. Kind of like the one that they hit to DJ Moore. And then Caleb needs to hit him. He needs to hit those big throws. If he has a guy open on the field and he's taking the shot, it needs to connect. This is a playoff game. This is a playoff game against a division rival. This is going to be a game that's going to be decided by 2 or 3 plays and who makes those 2 or 3 plays. I'm taking the Bears in this one. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be low scoring. Give me the Bears 24-21, whether it's a field goal, whether it's a touchdown after being down 4. I think the Bears win this one, and I think that they start the Ben Johnson era. They really, really, truly start the Caleb Williams era in Chicago with this win in the playoffs over the division rival, and they move on, and it's an electric atmosphere in Soldier. Okay, on to the Sunday games, and I have to say before getting into these are 3 games I feel like are toss-ups. The first one, get the Bills, Jags, get the Niners, Eagles, and Chargers, Patriots. I see past to victory for both teams in these games, kind of more than the earlier ones for sure. We'll start with Bills Jags. This is one of the ones I've been going back and forth on. I truly don't know what to do here because the Jaguars are the better team. The Jaguars won their division. They're the better overall team. They have better defense. But the Bills have Josh Allen. The Bills are more experienced in big moments. They've been there. They might not have the talent necessarily, but they have the best player on the field, which is Josh Allen. Trevor Lawrence has played in 2 career postseason games. Most notably, it's that comeback against the Chargers where they were down 3 touchdowns, I believe, at least, and he makes the comeback to win that game, and they lost to Kansas City the next game that year. But so he has had some playoff experience. Liam Cohn's first game as a playoff coach. A lot of these guys, their first playoff game on the Jaguars. This is a new roster compared to that 2022 team. But the Jaguars are one of the best teams in football, quite frankly, and that's something that I don't think anyone pictured saying early in the season. They're 13-4. They're coming off of they're on a 7-8 game winning streak. They're hot right now, and they're facing a Buffalo team that, quite frankly, I mean, they're at 12-5, but they've kind of, I mean, they've won 5 of their last 6, but that Eagles loss showed some glaring holes. They just beat the Jets last week in the last game at Highmark Stadium. I'm leaning towards the Bills in this game, quite honestly. I think that just it's Josh Allen, dude. That's what I keep going back to, and I'm trying to think about who's going to win this game. Is Josh Allen? I see him. This isn't the Chiefs. If there's ever a year for Josh Allen to break through and make it to the Super Bowl, it needs to be this year. There's no Chiefs. There's no Ravens. There's none of the usual suspects there. Everyone's new there. You're the guy that's been there before, that's still trying to get over that hump. With Trevor Lawrence, as he has been playing good football recently, in him, you know that there's still some of those Trevor Lawrence plays from earlier this season when he had that 4-turnover game against the Cardinals where they ended up winning, but he's just asking his team to lose. He's like trying to find any reason for them to blow that game. And going back to 2022, I saw a stat where in the last 10 games in 2022, his touchdown interception ratio is 15-2, and then throws 5 picks in the 2 postseason games. I just feel like postseason football is different, man. It's a different animal. The game is different. The way things are called is different. The stress is different. And quite simply, I just like that. I like Josh Allen a lot better in that situation than Trevor. I do have to say, though, the Jacksonville receiving core has definitely been a lot better in the last few weeks. Even Brian Thomas Jr. was contributing a little bit in the last few weeks, which is something that he didn't do all season long. They have the kicker advantage. Having a great kicker in the playoffs is massive. Cam Little makes the 67-yarder last week. Parker Washington's really come on out as of late. So Lawrence has weapons to throw to. Like I don't doubt that. I think a big key here for the Jags' victory can be Travis Etienne. If they can establish the run game a little bit and take the pressure off Trevor and kind of gash that Bills run defense that isn't great. It's not the greatest. If they can work on that, I think that can be definitely an advantage for Jacksonville. But overall, it's Josh Allen. It's just what I keep going back to. Josh Allen's going to will his team to victory. I don't see him getting bounced in the wild card in a year where it's so open like this. Give me the Bills to win, but I think it's going to be a close one. I think you're going to need Josh to come down and deliver a game-winning drive at the end of it and send you to the divisional round. So give me the Bills. Give me the Bills 30-28. I think they kick a field goal to clinch it to end the game. Next game, Eagles and Niners. Niners are 4.5-point dogs. And I think people are underrating the San Francisco 49ers right now. People are comparing this a lot to the Seahawks game. They're saying this was a good defense. Look what a good defense just did to them. The Seahawks defense is a much different animal than the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles have a good defense. They have a good defensive line comparable there. Jalen Carter, Davis in there too, Jordan Davis. But the Seahawks defense is not the Eagles defense is not the Seahawks defense. It's not like they're kind of confused. It's Mike McDonald is not Vic Fangio, and this is the personnel. The Seahawks have much better DBs. They have much better safety play. On the defensive line and maybe in the linebacker play, I think they're a little bit similar. But in the secondary, I think they're better. And I think Brock can have some more success today. I don't see Kyle Shanahan, who got severely outcoached last week and got kind of stuffed in the locker room by Mike McDonald. I don't see him struggling again like that in 2 weeks in a row. I see them being able to put up points. And if the reason the Niners do lose, I think it's because of the banged up defense. They lose Tatum Bethune, their middle linebacker for the year, who was filling in for Fred Warner, who's not going to be back this week. But they're hoping to get Ricky Pearsall back. They're hoping to get Trent Williams back. Neither of them practice on Wednesday. I think that one of them's going to. I feel like they're both going to try to go. The season's on the line. They both didn't go last week. Trent, I know it's like a muscle injury. People thought he was going to play last week. And Ricky, it's a knee that he previously battled through. So I think he'll even go if it's even on a snap count. They need Ricky to be there. They need some sort of a downfield threat, because although the receivers that they have right now don't have any juice, they can be reliable underneath guys, but no one has juice to spread the field, stretch the field. So I think that Ricky being back would be massive. Brock is going to have to play at a high level this game. And I'm not a huge Brock Purdy guy, but I can see him. I can see them moving the ball in this game, to be honest. I just think it comes down to Kyle Shanahan, Brock Purdy not having 2 poor weeks in a row. And I think I trust Purdy, weirdly, more than I trust Hurts. I'm not a Jalen Hurts fan. Nothing I've seen from Jalen Hurts this year shows me he's ready for this game. The inconsistency of the offensive line play, no matter who's healthy and no matter who they're playing, they've seemed to have just struggled a lot. So with all that being said, I think that I like the Niners in this game. Weirdly, I like the Niners. I like Shanahan over Patullo calling plays on the other side of the ball. I like Saleh up trying to confuse Jalen Hurts in a way that maybe force him into a turnover or two. I think he can do that even with limited personnel. And I like them to stop the run. Like the Eagles' run game hasn't been good against anyone. So saying they're playing a banged up defense doesn't really change anything for me, because Saquon hasn't dominated against anyone all year. I don't think it changes anything. So call me crazy. I think the Niners win this football game. I think it's low scoring. It's ugly. I think they win 20-17. Quite honestly, knock out the Eagles on their home field, knock out the defending champs. Last game of Sunday Night Football. The Los Angeles Chargers go into New England to take on the New England Patriots. This is a weird one. The Chargers are the 7th seed, the last wildcard spot to get in. And this is a 3.5-point spread on the road at New England. This game, it's another one kind of on playoff experience. This Patriots team has little to no playoff experience. You got Stephon Diggs, obviously, but Drake May, second year, first playoff game, home game, 2 seed, 14 wins. The Patriots kind of have got all that talk this year. The strength of the schedule really wasn't there. Not many playoff atmospheres, playoff tests. I mean, just looking at recently, they beat the Ravens on Sunday night, which was a big win. They beat the Bills. That was 2 weeks in a row. And then you have to go all the way back to, they beat the Bucs, I guess, on the road, but the Bucs are a bad team. They beat the Bills early in the season, and they lost the Steelers in week 3. They don't have many tests there. And I do think they're good, and I think that they're legit, but I think this Chargers team is built for games like this. I think Jim Harbaugh and his team are built for games. Jim is going to have his guys ready for this game. The way Justin Herbert has been playing the last few weeks, he hasn't necessarily been putting up the stats, but he's been gritting through some games, man. He has been gritting through some games, and he's kind of battled. He's battled. Like, he hasn't been putting up the passing stats, but he's ran when he had to. He's been taking a lot of hits, which isn't a good thing. That the Patriots are going to pressure him like no other. The Chargers' offensive line is really, really bad, but he's been finding ways to get it done. A big third down, he'll tuck in, run in, just find a way. He's going to need to get his receivers a little bit more involved in this game. This is a Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen game. I don't know necessarily that Vrabel's going to allow the big deep shot to be hit to Quentin Johnson in this game. He needs to establish Keenan Allen on big third downs. He needs to establish Ladd McConkey on big third downs. And that's going to be the key for the Chargers moving the ball on offense. For the Patriots, Drake May just needs to play like Drake May, how he has all season. He can't overthink it. And I think that with a banged up Chargers secondary, I think that May can hit he can hit some shots in this game. He can hit Diggs deep. He can hit Mac Hollins deep. If he just keeps playing how he's been playing, if they can establish Travion in this game, they'll be massive. Travion and Ramondre going into the playoffs is a really good 1-2 punch. Early in the season, fantasy managers were pissed. It should have been Travion, blah, blah, blah. Yes, but having Travion and Ramondre kind of being the hard-hitting guy, Travion can be the guy that can stretch the field. You can hit him in the screens. You can break off a long 60-yard run in an instant. That's huge in a playoff game, especially in a home atmosphere. As much as I said I like the Chargers, I think the Patriots find a way to pull this one out. I think this is a close game, but I think that just the way the Patriots' offense has been playing, the reliability in the offensive line compared to the way the line isn't there on the Chargers side of the ball, I think that the Patriots win this game. It's going to be in Gillette. Gillette's going to be rocking. They haven't had a game like this in a few years since Brady left. So I think the Patriots win. I don't know if it's necessarily super high scoring, but give me the Patriots 26 20. I think that it's kind of, they pull away late. Chargers make the one-score game and can't quite get the ball back at the end of the game to win it. So Monday night, the young gun versus the vet in his last, what could be his last game. Every one of these could be his last. Aaron Rodgers hosts CJ Stroud on Monday Night Football in Pittsburgh. It's going to be rocking. The 4 versus the 5 seed. Mike Tomlin hasn't lost a Monday Night Football game in, I believe, like 20 games, but he also hasn't won a playoff game in years. So one of those things is going to break. Mike Tomlin, as a home underdog, a similar situation to he was last week. He thrives as being the underdog. He's going to have his guys motivated. They get DK Metcalf back. That's a huge factor because you saw the guys that they were throwing the ball to last week, that Rodgers was throwing the ball to with potentially his career on the line. I mean, it was wildly impressive the way that he was able to pull it out. Kenneth Gainwell had 8 receptions. Great receiving back, but 8 receptions. Adam Thielen had 3. And MVS had 5. Scotty Miller had 2. It was wild that he was doing. And this is a team you're facing one of the best defenses in the entire league. I need DK Metcalf to assert himself. And he hasn't always done that. It seems like every time there's a big one-on-one matchup, and DK has never been the guy to step up and really assert himself in that one-on-one. He needs to do something in this game. He needs to make a big play down the field. He needs to make a big contested catch on a big third down, something that he hasn't notoriously done in his career. He needs to do that in this game if the Steelers want any chance. I think the Steelers' defense can have some success in this game. Stroud is a guy I don't really know how to feel about. He's a guy that he seems to be rattled by some pressure. Sometimes he can seem to lose himself in some big games and not really be on his best performance. And the Steelers can keep it. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't see the Steelers being able to score that many points on this Texans defense. But if the Steelers defense can force a turnover off Stroud, which is something that he's very susceptible to doing, let me pull up his playoff stats. They can. I think I trust Rodgers more in a game where you need to score 1 touchdown or 2 touchdowns than I trust Stroud to get his team down the field. CJ Stroud in the playoffs, overall, he's played 4 games, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. Not a whole really lot to go off of there. Last year, they made it, and they beat let me see. Can't find it. But I remember they beat the Chargers last year. And that was the Herbert to 4 interceptions. It wasn't really like a insane performance by CJ Stroud. So I think that it's weird. I trust Rodgers at home. Being the home underdog, Pittsburgh, it's literally the same situation that it was last week. And I trust Mike Tomlin to get his guys up. I think they're going to get over the hump in this game and beat the Texans. And it's going to be underwhelming for Texans fans. Texans fans are going to be pissed because this defense is so good. But I just haven't seen the consistency on offense that I need to see for a team going into the playoffs. I haven't. And they have been rolling. This is weird to say because the Texans have been rolling. They haven't lost a game since they lost to the Broncos. That's how many weeks ago? Was that 9 weeks ago? But in the last few games with Stroud, that Chargers game was ugly. 2 interceptions, 16-28, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They were able to run the ball in that game, though. So if they can run the ball, that's going to take a lot of pressure off them. But the Steelers have an ability to kind of swallow up the run. They let Derrick Henry run all over him in the first quarter. And after that, he was kind of a non-factor in that game. So, and then going back to the week before that, they played the Raiders, won 23-21. Stroud, 23 of 35, 187 yards. Struggled to run the football. They had 26 attempts for 83 yards. The week before that, I'm just looking at their last few weeks, just kind of how the way they played. They beat the Cardinals 40-20. That's an unserious football team. When they beat the Chiefs, Stroud was 15-31, 203 yards, 1 touchdown. That's a really good defense. I mean, it's not even a great defense in Kansas City. They shut them down for 2 quarters of that game. Woody Marks was 26 carries for 68 yards. They had a failure to run the football. Nico Collins was 4 receptions for 121 yards. So he kind of had a bunch of boom, boom, boom plays. And they won that game because their defense forced 3 turnovers. If it's an ugly, gritty game, 20-10, 20-15, 17-13, I could see. I like the Steelers in this game. I like Rodgers to now. Like, just like how he did last week, he had multiple drives down the field at the end of the game to go win his team the game, and they did it. Chris Boswell is not going to make the same mistake 2 weeks in a row. I think it's going to be gross. I think it's going to be ugly. I think the Steelers win 17-13, quite honestly. And it sets up for a fun divisional round. I think it's going to be a really, really fun weekend of games, quite honestly, in the wild card round. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to all these games. Before I wrap it up, I have to talk about Damon Williams. It's in the title, and I'm going to keep it short. I don't want to just rant for 10 minutes. But this story is ridiculous, and it's everything that's wrong with college football right now. A lot of people on Twitter don't realize what Husky fans think the problem is. They are like, why would you want to play for your team next season? That's not what we want. Why would you want someone on your team that doesn't want to be there? Again, that's not really it. And they're like, oh, this is what happens. This is what you get for players leave all the time, blah, blah, blah. No. The issue of this is, especially this portal cycle, everyone's talking about I'm re-signing. I believe USC started the trend. This person's re-signing, which has never been a thing before. And NIL deals have been agreed to, and people have said they're going to come back, whatever. What if they were declaring for the draft? No. People are just openly, and now every school is doing it, re-signing for the next year, a 1-year contract, which is insane for college sports. You're enrolled at school. You're going to re-sign for 1 year? Okay, whatever. About 5 days ago now, Pete Thamel posts, Damon Williams has re-signed with the Washington Huskies. And it was the first person to re-sign with Washington. No, they hadn't announced anyone else. And it was okay, that's cool. No one really thought he was going to leave, but he's re-signing, so he's coming back. Great. And then 4 days later, out of nowhere, reports he's going into the portal. After you re-sign the contract with the school, there has to be a way to end. This can't happen. And he's the first person to have done this. So now think about any other person, even if it's not this cycle, if nothing's fixed, if you re-sign to a deal, in my head, I was like, okay, these people are off the table. Now schools with big money and big pockets are just going to reach out to these people that have re-signed and say, hey, I'll give you more than that. And there's obviously, we'll see what happens, but there's no consequence for it right now. And good for the Huskies. The Huskies can save the college football landscape. They have an ability to, they're taking it to court. They're taking legal action. They're hoping they're going to enforce his contract, whether that's some sort of buyout money from LSU, which wherever he's going to go, I don't give a fuck where he goes. I don't care. But they deserve something. You can't, they were going to pay him in the middle of $4 to $5 million. And then LSU comes calling Lane Kiffin, who's committed to in high school, and he is going to give him $6 million. We'll give you $6 million. And allegedly, Damon went behind his agent's back. His agent didn't know about this. It was Damon's family, which is going to open up a whole nother can of worms with him and his agency because he violated his agent contract. So he's going to, I hope he loses out on as much money as he can. He's a scumbag. He does it during a memorial for a Washington soccer player while all of his teammates and family are there. He stabs Jedd Fisch in the back. Jedd Fisch built this program around Damon Williams. Every single time he talked about the team, Damon, we're going to do what's best for Damon on the offensive side of the ball. He brought Damon, a high school senior, which is unheard of these days in college football, from Arizona as a commit and handed him the keys to the program. Will Rogers played his freshman year, but Damon, he worked him in there to get him ready for the next 2 years. He handed him there was no competition. There wasn't even a phony competition. He handed him the start. Damon's our quarterback. We're working towards next year with Damon. We're going to build this offense around what Damon does. And Damon goes behind his back for, what, $1 million more? Okay, it's a lot of money, yes, but he was going to, I don't even doubt that they wouldn't have matched that. And quite honestly, I don't at all. With how much the Jett has done for him, And he goes behind his back and just does this while his teammates are at a memorial for a player at the school, and Damon's not there. His coaches are there. The Big Ten's in town, and he makes the whole story instead of it being about himself. How selfish is that? That is ruining the sport. It's ruining the sport. I don't even know what else to say. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I hope he gets all the hate that he deserves. I hope he has no success next season. I understand the people saying he's a kid, he's just trying to make his money. Okay, but someone has to be made the example. Someone has to be the guinea pig that fucks it all up for a lot of people and screws himself over in the process and comes to reckoning for the entire country of college football to look, this isn't going to happen. We're not going to let this fly anymore. Kids have to be punished in some way. Kids have always been able to do whatever they want. I'm going to leave school. I'm going to this school, whatever. I can transfer 8 times, whatever. Someone has to make an example to where this cannot be happening in the future. It's unacceptable, quite honestly. So I'm going to leave it there. As more news comes out, I'll talk about it. But I just thought I had to talk about it because I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous, and he deserves everything that's coming to him, all the hate that's coming to him. So I'm going to wrap up the show there. I hope it's an exciting weekend of football, starting with tonight. Hoping that Oregon loses anything for Indiana. I'll trade everything in for an Indiana win tomorrow. I'll see you guys on Tuesday. We'll do it Tuesday to recap every single game. Enjoy the weekend.